Now listening to N21FM, a Play Pokemon podcast. I'm Glenn, that's Johnny. We are excited this evening to issue an announcement that I'm always right. And I always have been.
Just coming out the gate swinging.
Absolutely. In the last episode... In the last episode, so not always right. I'm always mostly right. In the last episode, I predicted that Fabrizio Ingasilva would win the regional of the following weekend, or of that weekend, which at the time, because we record this normally on Fridays, was Birmingham and Rio. I did predict, however, that Fabrizio would win with Bolt Thorns. I was incorrect about that, but Fabrizio did take the W from the regional at Rio de Janeiro. But we'll get to that in a second. Before we do, friendly reminder, most of you, according to YouTube analytics, 98% of you are not subscribed. What are you doing? Fix it.
Please.
It's totally free. It helps get the podcast to more people. And it helps me out. I appreciate it a lot. So leave a like, a comment. Let me know if you disagree with me. Because you probably will, but just all that good stuff. And then, of course, join us over on patreon.com/terminal creative to get access to bonus content for the show and early access to every episode. We record normally on Fridays. This week we're doing it on Saturday, but you'll get access to the show most weeks on Saturday rather than the following Wednesday, which is pretty great. It's only $5 a month, gets you a lot of bonus content, gets you early content, and gets you a special place in my heart.
Yep.
So
you get to listen to us talk about a lot more fun stuff.
Usually you just slay the spire, but
yes,
and it's not going away because early access comes out this year, and I'm really excited about it. So with that said, we've got a lot to cover today. Johnny, what are we covering today?
So in our last, well, not our last episode, but one of our last episodes, we talked about kind of some predictions going into Rio and Birmingham, which, by the way, those were part of that Patreon bonus content. So if you aren't subscribed there, if you're not paying for the Patreon, you kind of missed that one out. But that's okay, because we're gonna go and recap that right now. That's what we're gonna go over today. So yeah,
I'm super.
Let's kind of kick it off. I guess probably with Rio, right? Or do you want to start with Birmingham?
I would like to start with Birmingham because I want to save the best for last. Because
absolutely.
This was, yeah. Well, I'll get to why in a second. Let's talk about Birmingham.
Yeah.
The winner of Birmingham. This was on the 18th of January, 2025. This is a 2018 player tournament. Absolutely bananas. Huge roster of players. Really, really impressed with the turnout. And the winner, of course, I'm not going to be able to. Ovind, I'm not even going to try the last name because I am illiterate. But
I think that's very fair. Unfortunately, neither of us are Finnish, and I don't think either of us can pronounce Finnish names. So
not really. No.
Unfortunately.
But Ovind, congrats for the win in Birmingham. Yep. Playing Charizard Pidgeot, a really interesting list here.
Oh my god, it's
pretty standard for the most part. I like it a lot though.
I'm enjoying this list. I actually built this out to start messing with it. And I'm gonna. I haven't, but I'm going to. But I kind of like what's going on here because it's following that very standard Charizard list, but the fun little aspect with it, I think, the little bit of sauce, a little bit of spice that everyone likes to talk about in decks. There's a Pokestop in it.
There is a Pokestop in it. Didn't he get runner-up at a recent regional with the Pokestop build too?
I'm gonna double check.
I seem to recall.
Yes, actually. They did indeed get second at Stuttgart.
Okay, which that's what I thought I heard.
Was running the exact same list.
Wow.
And runner-up. I remember that one as well. Yes, runner-up to another Charizard build. Not the same exact 60, I don't believe.
Still impressive.
Stuttgart.
Still
But
very,
yes,
very
absolutely
play.
impressive.
It's nice to see that Charizard can still show up in a format that is littered with Regidrago V-Star. I feel like it's so hard to get Charizard up and running when you've just got a bajillion Ogerpons being like, ooh, what if I got that for free?
Yeah.
Lots of very cool cards in here. This list is running Unfair Stamp, which is cool.
Yeah. I was gonna really quickly, actually. I kind of wanted to mention this because I I ended up getting a screenshot of this while I was watching some stuff from day one, at least last weekend in Birmingham. But I think it was interesting. Regidrago V Star was at 13% of the day one statistics, which I feel like was low compared to what a lot of people I think maybe were expecting. I think people were expecting a lot more Drago. I know that's the sentiment around like the Searching Sparks format kind of has been that it's gotten stale, which is understandable. The Drago format, the Drago on top format is definitely a little bit tiring. So it's kind of interesting to see, that people are so tired of Drago existing that they kind of only. I mean, it seems like people want to play other stuff besides Drago just to kind of move the format along, just to a feel bit.
Something,
right? I'm wondering if that's really what it is. Like, is it like, are these other decks just having more time to shine? Are they suddenly doing better, or is it that Drago is just kind of played out and people want something different for once?
Absolutely, that's a really important thing to note.
Yeah, but Zard ending up on top, I think. Well, not on top, but second place in the day one statistics at 10% of the meta share. I think is kind of cements that that hold here with Zard having a first place showing. And yeah, just such a standard list, but that little bit of Pokestop is so cool.
Just the one little card, the Pokestop, it's very cool. It helps out a lot. Just sometimes you just need to dig 3 more cards. It's a really cool addition. I like that it's also playing my boy Thornton. Thornton is finally getting some time to shine in this format, and I think it's cool because it's such a stylish card, and sometimes it is just the optimal play. But
absolutely,
it is also very clearly this is to style on your opponent. Just kind of show off, be like, "Ooh, I put this card in, haha!" Like but it's also not tacky at all. I love the utility of Thornton. I will miss it when it rotates.
Yes,
it's so cool. I'm glad that it's finally getting some love. And it runs this Charizard list runs Briar and Turo, and then a pretty standard 3/2/2 as far as Arven Iono boss. Pretty standard stuff. It's not like a crazy Tord list. It's also not like your bog standard Charizard list. I think 5 energy is a little low. I think you're cutting it close there, but
5 is tight. But
it's good if it's good enough to win. It's good enough. That's the important thing.
At the end of the day, Charizard just needs 2 to attack, so you've got 1 extra there after 2 of them. And to be fair, we are running only 2 Charizard EX in this and 1 Radiant Charizard. And those are your attackers right there.
Yeah,
you're not really doing anything with anybody else in this deck. Those are your attackers. So that's enough energy for attackers. If you get 1 prize, you find it, you Super Rod back in the meantime or something like that.
Yeah.
With 2 Super Rod, by the way, I think that's plenty of recovery.
Oh, certainly. That's all of your energy almost twice. So
pretty
very
much.
Cool Charizard list. Very incredible performance as well from Oven. Very impressed with that. And what's crazy is you can very clearly tell that they played against probably a substantial amount of Regidrago, or at least Regidrago was played to this tournament, right?
Yes.
Because I'm looking at top 8. There's 2 of them in top 8, and then another 2 in top 18, another 2 before you even hit top 26. And another one right outside of that. So very
absolutely.
Surprisingly diverse meta with some Lugia, some Arcaludon, some Cloth, some Pidgeot Control right there in the top 16. Of course, our boy Sander Wojcik killing it with Pidgeot control, some Gardevoir. It's a very interesting top 8 because you've got this Charizard deck that smoked a lot, that did really well. What was his? Do we have his record for? I don't think
his
we do.
Birmingham record. Unfortunately, I don't believe so.
I was trying to pull up Arcanine, but it wanted me to sign in, and I didn't want to take time away to figure out what my login was.
Yeah.
But you've also got like 2 Regidrago in top 8. You've got a Terapagos Dusknoir, which is really cool. I think these Regidrago lists are literally the same exact thing too.
Yeah.
Because it's Brent Tonneson. Hold on. Oh wait, there's a little bit of difference. Okay,
Let me see if I can.
Brent Tonneson ran 3 research, 1 counter catcher, 1 prime catcher, and who is this other guy? What's their name? Rune ran 4 research and then 1 superior energy retrieval and prime catcher.
Yes.
So no
2 super rod, 1 superior. Yeah.
And
no
then
counter catcher.
The energy split is a little different in Rune's deck as well.
Yeah,
fire energy, which
they're
is
going
risky.
On the 7-2 energy, which it's definitely risky, but I think that a lot of Drago players started gravitating towards like the 7-2, just because it was. I as someone who just hasn't played a ton of Drago, like it's absolutely a good deck. Do a decent job with it most of the time. It's just not fun for me to play.
No, I get that.
But from my understanding, at least, a lot of Drago players really want to gravitate, I think, towards like the 7-2 just as a spread, because you're often only, again, it's kind of the same thing with like the Charizard. You're really only ever needing like 2 tops, and you can usually start with both of them in deck, or at least 1 in deck. If you prize both of them, that's obviously like
a bad time.
Yeah. I mean, play it out, I guess. You have Ogerpon, you can try,
Yeah.
You don't have to scoop right away, but it's definitely going to be a tougher game if you
100%.
prize both fire.
100%.
So, yeah.
I respect
but that's, yeah, absolutely.
Let's take a look at this Charizard list that Nofum was running as well. That's another cool Charizard list. It's pretty similar, I want to say. 2 Rotom V is worth noting. 4 Arvin, running 1 research in there is cool too.
Yeah, I think the 2 Rotom V is interesting because it's like really valuing that turn 1 draw.
Yeah, you want to start it.
I think that's like, yeah, that's putting that above everything else, even above like having a Cleffa instead of the second Rotom, like wanting to really have that extra draw, wanting to ensure that you can have something available to Forest Seal Stone if you're not going to necessarily play down your Lumineon. But yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much beyond that. It's pretty standard. It's got the general supporter package, 4 Arvin instead of 3 for thicker, item search. The rest of the supporters are pretty much there. I do like the research as well.
Yeah.
If you go to like a low hand size, you can always.
Sometimes it's nice to just research.
Yeah, bring yourself back up to a good hand size, especially if you don't need anything else, or like, or you need multiple other things, and drawing into that would give you that chance to get into those things. I do think I'm interested in like the league headquarters, because that
league headquarters
that's such an interesting card to put in, I think, to really aim for like the big basic decks instead of aiming for anything else. Like,
I mean, big basics are the only thing really knocking you out outside of
that's true.
Outside well, because consider, right? So you've got Ogerpon is the only thing that really is a harsh counter to Charizard. And so that's going to need 4 now instead of 3. And then on top of that, you've got like the only other thing is like Bolt and Moon, and nobody's really playing either of those.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that. Let me give myself just that extra little bit of insurance just to make certain that this one really harsh matchup is a little more doable.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
can see that.
I think that's smart deck building. I think
Mhm.
maybe if he'd made more room, because I didn't see his top 8 matches, but I saw one of them. But I think that's smart deck building.
Mhm.
You just maybe something else came up that would have caused him to not perform quite as well. I mean, top 8 is still nothing to no slouch. But
Yeah.
even if that wasn't the optimal 60, I think that's very cool. I think the optimal 60 might maybe include a league headquarters, because that's just smart deck building, I think.
Mhm. I think that's a fair assessment too.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because like at this point, Zard really just kind of wants like either the league headquarters or the collapsed stadium.
Yeah.
You need pretty much either one of those. Even Temple of Sinnoh really isn't like a great option because it's only there for the Lugia, and I don't think Lugia is. It's certainly not played enough right now to have to put a temple in to respect it.
Right. Next format will be something a little different, but in the meantime, it's not doing its best. It's on the downtrend for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I think Collapse is also a really good option in that deck. It's very, very potent. Just being able to clear a damaged Zard off the board.
Yeah, getting rid of like anything that's damaged, getting rid of a liability like Luminion or a Rotom after you've already used it for what it's there for.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Yeah, just
reminds
get
me
it
of
out of the way.
I think it was Worlds 2023 or 24, or maybe it wasn't Worlds, but I remember seeing Tord when he was playing Gardevoir rocked. I literally benched Luminion. Luminous signed for Turo Scenario or Penny, and then attacked for a Sealstone, got whatever else he needed, and then picked up the fish. Like, all right, I'm done with you. Don't need you.
I mean, that is a super valid strategy to just use 4 Sealstone to grab the thing that you need, because and use fish itself to just grab something to clear itself off the board after you've got the one thing you need. Like that's so smart. I mean, it works. It's smart. It works. But yeah, I think with Zard out of the way, let's look at the second place list.
Let's look at that second place list. I'm eating so good right now.
Yeah.
So Palkia Noctowl is my favorite deck in the format.
Yes.
And it's not even close. I love this deck. I played Palkia and Teleon to my first regional. I love how I understand it's not good for the game to just be able to like, oh, I'm going to go get whatever I want every single turn. But I think now with the way it is, that there's a lot of counterplay, being able to target down Terapagos, being able to limit damage via targeting the stadium. I think it's in a better spot now, and I think it's very cool to have in the format, and I have a sentimental attachment to it, and that's why I love this deck.
Absolutely.
With that preface over with, I woke up the morning of January 19th, my birthday, to find that my favorite deck in the format had 3 spots in top 8 at Birmingham. And I was overjoyed. I mean, I had the biggest, stupidest smile on my face the whole day. It was incredible. I was on cloud 9. I'm very, very happy with how it turned out. Jonathan Sharpling, Alexander Rudowicz. Yeah, Rudowicz. He's a Polish player.
Yeah.
And then Benjamin Grover. All played Palkia Noctowl top 3. Terapagos Dusknoir also showed up to top 8. We'll talk about it. It doesn't matter as much. That's a cool deck. It's, in my opinion, it's just a less cool version of Palkia Noctowl.
Yeah.
So those of you who don't know, Noctowl from Stellar Crown has the ability Jewel Seeker, where once during your turn, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, if you have any Terra Pokemon in play, you may search your deck for up to 2 trainer cards, reveal them, and put them in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. This is really, really cool. It's it's very similar to Inteleon, Shady Dealings, and then just having your Palkias to do big damage with big bench, and all the tools you could ever need inside the deck to make it work. What's the word? It's a very adaptive deck.
Yes.
It is you can do many, many, many things with it. You don't I don't think you have a lot of bad matchups, really. And it was an incredible meta call for this. I think I remember seeing Fabrizio, and we'll talk more about this later, more about Fabrizio's list later, and just his performance. But I remember, I think you and I were on a call at the time.
Yes.
And we were talking about the Limitless. It might have even been on the show, but we were talking about how he played this to a Limitless late night.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. Why is he playing that deck? And now it's just so cool for me to see this deck come back, get this kind of last hurrah, see some good performance out of it. My name on Discord, in our local Discord chat, has been Glenn Hawk Towel Truther since Jewel Seeker Noctowl came out. So just understand this was a big deal for me. And it's so cool to see that deck get built. The second place list also ran a 1/1 Bibarel, which I think is super cool. That's a very noteworthy inclusion because I mean it's Bibarel. Like sometimes you just need to draw cards and that's cool and good.
Yeah. Having kind of messed around with this deck a little bit through live play to kind of get a feel for it. I could definitely understand why you might want a Bibarel in it. I feel like sometimes you do just kind of nuke your hand size because you're gonna go and you're gonna search for your Noctowls with Ultra Balls, so you have to get rid of stuff to maybe get those, or you have the Noctowls in hand, but everything that you're grabbing out of your deck is immediately just going to get played down. So you're playing cards out of your hand more than you're getting stuff to hold on to for later in the game. Yeah. So I could definitely understand why
you're in a very tight hand. Everything that it's very much a deck that relies on like every action has to be performed. At the time that you're performing it, where you're playing, you're like, I'm playing this card right now, and like everything that's in my hand right now is probably going to hit the board because every turn you're also setting up your next turn. So like in that regard, you do kind of have to limit your hand size really, really bad. So Bibarel makes perfect sense. I 100%. Not to mention on top of that, you can grab Bidoof with Fan Rotom. That's a good reason. It's a good reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fan Rotom has become one of my favorite cards, and that's one of them. Is you can grab, believe it or not, way more guys than you think you can with Fan
Really,
Rotom.
Truly. That's such a sick inclusion to just like be able to snag those and set yourself up for, draw power, to set yourself up for kind of everything. I mean, that's the cool part of it. And I really like how like balanced Noctowl feels too compared to the Shady Dealings and Tele Online. Like
absolutely.
With what existed at the time with like Scoop Up Net and all of that, because you could just being able to just play down your Drizzile onto your Sobble and search for something, and then we're gonna do it
again.
Yep, we're gonna candy into an Inteleon, and then we'll pick the Inteleon up with Scoop Up Net and
get them both ready for next turn,
get stuff set up, and then now that Drizzile's ready to evolve without candy, and then you just kind of chain it, and by turn 3 your deck just doesn't exist because
your
you've
deck
searched out everything
because you've grabbed everything you want out of it. It's so cool.
I love that. That's such a fun combo, but it does feel very a little too strong at times.
Yes, absolutely. The Shady Dealings engine, especially with Scoop Up Net, was way too good in the format. So this is why I think the trade-off of like Terras have to be in play. It is 2, but you're not getting an evolution after this. You have to set up another Hoot. You have to there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. Don't get it twisted. This deck is not good for the same reason that Palkia Inteleon was good.
Yeah.
Like, it has the same versatility and it has the same, a very similar engine, but the benefit you get is, or not the benefit, like, it is a way higher skill floor and way higher skill ceiling that you get with this deck. You can accomplish so much with this deck. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of setting yourself up for future turns. There's a lot of just 5-head plays that you can make. This deck also includes the Thornton and Kieran, a card I've been believing in for a long time. I think Kieran, especially in this deck, is bananas. It's very, very good. It makes your control matchup really good. It helps you, like, you keep a switch. You can do more damage. Like
30 more to V and EX is no slouch. Like, that's important.
That's like your worst. That's one of your worst matchups is Charizard. That helps that a lot. It's very, very important for that. So
I mean, being able to just swing for, knockout when, your opponent has, like, well, if you've got Area 0 in play, like, you just need your opponent to have a few extra things on bench in combo with, like, everything on your bench, and then you're punching.
I will say, though, the finals game was sad to watch because... So for those of you who did not watch the finals, Jonathan Sharpling lost in game 2 because he forgot that you cannot Moonlight Shuriken a Terra on the bench.
Yep.
It is the one time that Terra bench barrier has ever come up in competitive play.
Yep.
And it is so sad to see that my favorite deck fumbled the bag because of that one misplay. But I also get it. After a long day of just grinding out jewel seeking targets, like, it'll do that to you. You'll
absolutely.
You'll feel like Megamind by the end of it, or you'll feel like deflated entirely. So understandable, but very sad to see that happen in finals. But nonetheless, congrats to Ovind for the big win. I think with that, though, we probably ought to pivot to Rio.
Yeah, sure. Let's go check out the Rio results.
Where in Rio, it did win. And
exactly.
With Fabrizio Ingasilva playing the Palkia Noctowl with some of the spiciest tech in there that I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
And by that, I mean, first of all, Thornton is present. Judge is present. Judge is a cool disruption card. I mean, like, it just is fine. 2 boss, 2 Iono, 1 research. 1 research is good. Research feels good, like we talked about earlier. You run a very small hand. It's nice to research.
This is a deck that I feel like Judge is fantastic in, where because you're able to kind of get your hands on whatever you want, and because you can do that so early on, judging is such a good option. Like, turn 2 in the game. Turn 1, okay. Turn 2 Judge is fantastic when your opponent is playing something that's, like, amassing stuff in their hand, but they haven't taken a lot of prize cards, and you can just dunk that.
And you also don't always want to put your opponent to, like, a 6-card hand off of an Iono. So being able to be like, all right, we're both going to be, like, back to square one, but I've got an advantage because I've got these birds and I can go get whatever else I want out of it.
Yes.
In Fabrizio's list, he also opted for the 4/4 Noctowl, where it's been pretty common to play 3/3. And what has become one of my favorite cards in the deck, along in tandem with Fan Rotom, is the Ditto from 151, the Splup Ditto, with the transformative start ability. Once during your first turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck and choose a basic Pokemon you find there, except any Ditto. If you do, discard this Pokemon and all attached cards, put the chosen Pokemon in its place, then shuffle your deck. It is a Fan Rotom target, and then you can usually just attach Retreat into it to get it into the active, and you use that to go get your Palkia turn 1. That is something that I struggled a lot with when first playing with this deck on my own builds, is that you have to get Palkia and Terapagos down turn 1. And you can usually get one, but getting the other one is hard because you have to have the Palkia down to threaten turn 2 Greninja, or just a big turn 2 attack in general.
Yeah.
So having that one-up Ditto in there fixes so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I adore this list. I've been running the Fabrizio 60 ever since I've seen this. It's gorgeous. I think the one change he made since playing it at Limitless is he added the canceling cologne,
Which is smart.
which is so
That's
smart.
that's honestly a good choice right there.
Yeah. But yeah, I love this. I'm in love with this list. I am impressed with its performance. It won Rio, which is an 1,139 player tournament. Not as big as Birmingham, obviously, but another very big tournament, of course. And it has the capability of dealing with a lot of really potent stuff like Iron Thorns, like Reggie Drago, like Charizard, Cloth, Ancient Box, stuff like that. Sorry,
He ran the gauntlet.
It did, yeah. I've been
like,
yapping about it for a long time. Tell me
yeah,
about
no,
your
absolutely.
thoughts.
I mean, I like I said, as someone who kind of hasn't had a ton of hands-on time, just looking at it, I'm really enjoying it. Like I said, I think that Ditto tech is so fantastic. Like being able to get Ditto out if you start Ditto, that's Ditto is anything if you start it. If you fan Rotom, you can fan Rotom Ditto into play and move it up somehow, and then get your Palkia that way, especially if you're not, if you're not hitting Nest Ball turn one. Like that's such a fantastic play right there. I like like I said, like we said, with like the supporter spread,
Very
just
nice.
being able to focus in on your Iona, but having the options. I think like the one Irida is interesting, but
it works.
Also makes sense, you don't have to go hunting for water Pokemon all the time. You're really only running like a couple, so you really only need Irida to get
you only run 3.
Your V-Star out or your Radiant Greninja out, kind of whatever you're just able to get to at the time.
Because Irida doesn't get your Noctowls anymore. You're not able to get like shady dealings off of Irida.
No. So you just rely on that instead to grab your maybe one card that you need and an item card to go with it that will help you get into something else. Like we said, Judge is fantastic right now, especially honestly with like Dragapult being not heavily played right now, but like being eyed up currently, and then also especially for the next format. I think in the next format even you could see Judge becoming kind of an uptick in some of these decks as a way to move around the Dracloak plays where Holt players are trying to curate like a hand, and so every time that they use a Dracloak, they're gonna look at 2 cards and they're gonna keep the one that they want and put the one they don't want at the bottom of their deck. You Judge, you're messing up that order and for the hand and for like what they've not wanted as much, what the worst option is and what the better option is, and just kind of remixing it. And I think Judge is going to see an uptick because of that. Just in a lot of decks, but I think you could increase the count in here next format.
Yeah, I can
not to go on that tangent, but that's that's just something that I was kind of like eyeing up. I like obviously you've got the all the other good stuff. You've got your Night Stretchers to just kind of grab whatever you want. Night Stretcher is anything. Night Stretcher is anything.
Yeah, sometimes Night Stretcher is the next Noctowl that you need.
Yep, exactly. If you had to ditch a Noctowl, you could just Night Stretcher and grab it back. You can Ultra Ball away, a Noctowl and something else if you don't have a lot of Ultra Ball options, and then Night Stretcher for that Noctowl back. So fantastic. Earthen Vessel's always been good. Glass Trumpet is fantastic, especially with like the energy switch to kind of like figure out, where to like get energy to, because Glass Trumpet, that's going to get you energy back onto 2 different things, but then you can switch onto one of them for attacking. You can switch away towards a Palkia if you weren't able to charge up the Palkia completely because you had to put 2 energy on like Greninja. That's a way to sustain Greninja and chain Moonlight Shurikens turn after turn, especially if your opponent has like a shaky start. You can go, Subspace Swell, or excuse me, not Subspace Swell, but Star Portal. Put 3 onto Gradient Greninja, Glass Trumpet onto like Terapagos and Noctowl, Energy Switch off the Noctowl onto your onto your Greninja, and then if you have an attached for turn or something like that, another Water Energy attached for turn, and now you've got, you know, 6 like you're ready to go back to back Moonlight Shuriken.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a setup for it, like your opponent's not recovering from that. You can decimate them before they ever get properly set up.
And what's really cool about the Glass Trumpet Energy Switch package is sometimes it lets you. We've seen from a lot of from Reggie Drago play actually that sometimes the best thing that you can do as a player is hold on to that V-Star power until late game when you really need it to make a high impact play. And so what that Glass Trumpet E-Switch package allows you to do is off of one Jewel Seeking, you go get your Glass Trumpet and your E-Switch. And if you've already set up like a Palkia or a Greninja, sometimes that allows you to circumvent the Star Portal being mandatory turn 2 and get that turn 2 Moonlight Shuriken, get that turn 2 Subspace Swell without having to burn your V-Star power. And that's such a potent playstyle. Being able to, like, it's in a really, really strong position to find yourself in, is being able to hold on to that, be like, no, I'll wait until after this turn when my opponent has to really set back up, and then I'll Moonlight Shuriken and just be that far ahead in the prize race. And that is where you find yourself in such a commanding lead, and it's what makes this deck so versatile and so potent.
Yeah,
I'm in love with this deck. I could yap about it for 20 years.
Absolutely.
In fact,
I mean, turning Star Portal from a aggressive, like, powering up option to a sustain for the deck suddenly opens up so many avenues for this thing. It is really cool. I absolutely need to put more time in on practicing this, because this just cool. It just seems so fun to play.
And you do feel like the smartest person in the room when you just, like, string together a combo. You feel like the dumbest person when you fumble it because you messed up one of your routes. But when you've strung everything together, it's like that gif of Zach Galifianakis with the equations in front of his face. That's how I feel every game with this deck, and it's awesome.
It's great. I love playing decks like that. Like when you can chain your combos like that, and you're just like, oh, I'm getting like the best stuff off. I'm playing Pokemon.
I'm playing Pokemon cards tonight, boys.
Oh man,
so sick.
But
you had an experience like that pretty recently, and that's actually what our bonus content is about. We're talking about our locals. This is the mid-roll ad about how you should still be checking out our Patreon, because tonight we will be visiting our weekend. We had a little bit of time competing this weekend in the local scene, including today on the day we're filming this. So again, be sure head on over to patreon.com/terminalcreative to slide on us over $5 to get access to some bonus content. It'll be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that said, let's check out the rest of this top 8 in Rio. Where I'm surprised that Palkia was even able to thrive, because what's that second place deck, dude?
That second place deck is an Iron Thorns, and man, this is a contentious deck. I know a lot of people either really like Thorns or really hate Thorns, and I don't think there's really any in between. There's no one who's like, yeah, it's all right. No, there's no one who's like, yeah, it's a cool card. No, you are an avid Thorns enjoyer, or you are someone who has like a miniature hate shrine of this next to your larger Snorlax hate shrine.
Yeah.
like that's
hate shrine, and then the big one.
Like Snorlax is up here, and then Thorns is down here below it. Yeah,
that's so funny.
This
that is how it is though. Thorns is for sure like that.
It really is. I mean, we've seen this as you're gambling on coin flips to make sure your opponent cannot play the game and doesn't have fun while you have all the time in the world to make sure that they do nothing and
That's right.
they get nowhere, and that's about it. But it's always been such a interesting deck because of that, I think.
Yeah.
I think what's cool about this deck maybe is the fact that we're used to seeing maybe like Pokemon Catcher be a staple in this. And there's no Pokemon Catcher in this build.
None at all.
There's absolutely none. So we're not looking at disrupting the bench and pulling something up. We're not looking at trying to gust around and take key KOs. We're just looking at being as unabashedly evil
annoying.
and annoying. Yeah, just throwing down Crushing Hammer and hoping that you get heads on it every time and disrupting it. I mean, 4 chances for heads, like 50-50.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
it is.
Well, and what's cool is you also see that 4 of boss, right? And I don't know if Thorns prior was playing 4 boss, but and to an extent I kind of disagree with you. I think that a lot of this probably is about taking key knockouts because it's still running 3 Lost City. It's running the Devolution. Sometimes the only thing you need to knock out to like totally ruin your opponent's day, especially up against Charizard, Dragapult, Lost City, like Devo Lost City, and what can they do? Like after you've spread damage around, being able to boss up a really important target for them and just send it to the Lost Zone is really good. Lost City is such a potent card and nobody knows it. I've been saying since Fez has become a problem, everybody should be running Lost City just to get rid of it.
Lost City, I think, is kind of a star piece in this deck where you can just aim to get rid of like everything that your opponent has. They have no recursion for their Pokemon. Key Pokemon disappear and that's it.
And they're gone forever.
Banished to the Shadow Realm. Like they can't come back.
What do you do?
Yeah, it's rough out there for some decks because of this one. I think
it's a skill deck too. Like it's not like it's just somebody who's sitting there. Oh man, I'm just gonna play Quad Thorns because it's funny. Like this is. Do not be mistaken. This is a high skill deck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to learn how to manage your energy right with this deck. You have to learn how to maybe take a risk properly in this game in order to switch energy around, because you're going to be in situations playing this deck where you're not going to have the luxury of like, oh well, I'm just going to switch an energy over and then retreat into the one I just switched to, and then I can just go back and forth. You don't always have that luxury. It's not quite that simple. So having the opportunity having to learn how to manage risk versus reward, I think, is a big skill for this deck.
Yeah.
And you definitely have like payout with that too, with other supporters that can help you out in a tight spot, with the Penny, with the research, with the Judge to just for more disruption, like we've talked about.
Judge is good.
I love that Colress's Tenacity. Just the one of in here, I think, is fantastic because that's getting you
get your
that key Lost City. Yep, exactly. Like it's there is so much. I also really like this like one of Devolution in this deck. Actually, we've seen the Turbo Energize, but the one of Devolution is something that's not as common, I don't think. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but
I don't exactly follow the Thorns meta.
No, I really don't either. So it feels new, but if it's not, that's still so cool. Like, again, that's your answer to just a lot of stuff that you don't want to mess around with too much. Devolution itself is just kind of crazy good without even having to like do much. You don't necessarily have to use it to take KOs by like putting damage and then devolution later. Like you can just use it as a rare candy exhausting tool.
Waste a rare candy.
That's like every time that for every card that you devolution, that's a rare candy that your opponent has used and will not get back.
Sometimes two.
Yeah. I mean, it can destroy a Charizard deck in a single play.
Yeah.
Like that's so. I mean, I think that's why you see it this deck as high as it is, because it has answers into stuff like that, and it has answers into its weaknesses. I'm still, yes, a little baffled that Palkia managed to kind of like come out on top against this.
That
but
seems
honestly,
absolutely silly, but I love it.
Maybe it is like we said, Palkia just has all those answers.
I guess to be fair, you only really need rule box abilities for one turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
for
even
sure.
then, like I said, the versatility of the Glass Trumpet E-Switch is so good that you don't even always need that.
And you also have that Terapagos is a true second attacker.
Yeah, it's good.
Palkia, especially with the fact that like this isn't like, you know, Terapagos Dust Noir builds that are running double turbo. Terapagos gets its full damage output with an area 0, so it's punching for 240 and taking KOs on Thorns.
Yeah,
every single time with waters in there. So yeah, I could see how that works out.
To know. I didn't even think about that. That's another great out. Just another testament to how good Palkia Noctowl is just yeah. I've been saying it's BDIF for a long time, man. I'll yap forever. There's one more deck I want to go on and talk about before we move on to our next topic, and just because this is the only other unique deck really in top 8 here, is this Cloth Terapagos played by, who is this? This Paul. Okay, just Paulo piloted Cloth Terapagos to a, what is that, 5th place finish? Yes, 5th place finish. This is kind of wild. I'm seeing a lot of 1-of Pokemon.
Yeah.
And only 2 Cloth and 2 Terapagos. So that would just be so scary for me. This is such a cool deck too. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's just an interesting one. I feel like Cloth Terapagos just fits like the definition of toolbox deck, you know?
Yes, 100%.
Like I feel like calling it Cloth Terapagos doesn't do it justice for what it actually is, because like I get it, those are your attackers, but you know, like it's got so much more than that. It has so many avenues that you can take. I mean, you obviously you're looking for your Terapagos KOs, you're looking for your Cloth KOs. Cloth as a single prizer is fantastic right now, especially with, you know, Terapagos in the meta. Like, you run into other Terapagos decks and you're swinging for weakness on them, which is absurdly good, obviously.
Yes.
Every deck runs Pheasantipity, and so you're swinging for weakness on a Pheasantipity.
That's right.
You know, and as a single prizer, it makes this so much harder to kind of maneuver around, because now your opponent has they really don't have like all the answers when they're punching back into a single prizer, you know.
And another thing worth noting is that Cloth, even with double turbo, still takes out Luminian V, and because of that weakness, it's also really good into Rotom V too.
Yes.
So like those, and even if it comes down to it, Blood Moon Ursaluna is another big target. I don't. Does that number hit? Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, it does.
With a double turbo, you're what, at 220, and then
weakness.
Oh yeah. Oh,
and then also if you add like the Mochi,
God,
poison from the and then poison from the Brute Bonnet, like you're getting there.
Yeah.
So it's cool that it's so good at taking one prize little goober and making him just obliterate one of the support Pokemon.
Yeah, for sure. And it's got like all of these really cool options in it. You have your outside of just those 2 attackers, you have Blood Moon for late game, in game stuff. You can come in with Blood Moon with a double turbo, even, you know, at your opponent with 3 prizes taken, and you know, you're still like mid game at that point, still being able to kind of punch around and stuff. And that's 220 base. And then when you factor in, you know, poison with Mochi and things like that, you're punching for, you know, you're 260, but you got poison, so that's 270, but you've got Sneaslers, so that's 290. Like,
And then coming back into your turn, that's 300 damage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's
You've
good.
got big numbers that you can do with this. The Hisuian Electrode V is in there with super effective glasses purely as a Charizard answer.
Yeah.
Because that's probably the one thing that this deck is just going to have a much harder time handling.
Certainly.
You've got this Genesect in there.
I love that Genesect.
Just to be, that little bit extra hate towards your opponent getting their A-Specs off. Genesect just doesn't let you play A-Specs. Like, it's not even that A-Specs will have no effect. They can't be played out of your hand, which I think is so much stronger.
Yeah.
Like,
because if you're at Regidrago, you can play Prime Catcher and have it. You could theoretically play Prime Catcher, have it fizzle, but then know that it's sitting in your discard later. So anytime you want to, you can go get it. It's kind of the same effect as like what was so cool about having Versus Seeker and Battle Compressor in the same format. Is you can go grab whatever supporters you want and make sure they're safely tucked away in your discard pile, and then go get them when you need.
Yep. It forces you to have to get rid of something. Like for Drago, it would have to get rid of that Prime Catcher with a Research with an Ultra Ball before it can get it back into hand to be used later. Right. And I think that's super important because that's shutting stuff off like that is just, it matters. It really does matter.
Well, and it also is a deck building check too, to make sure that your opponent has built a deck that is ready for big threats like Genesect. Genesect has been slept on in this format outside of control. But I think it's going to be a very potent card, especially going into rotation format. Being able to nullify Ace-Specs is very good. Having a Lost Vacuum right now before rotation hits is going to continue to be so important.
Yes.
Because not always for Genesect, but for other things. Like, there's just a lot of really high potency tools right now. Lost Vacuum is just, I can't overstate how good it is to include in your deck.
Absolutely. And then, this deck even has like that. It's got that turn one donk potential with that Baby Petch.
I was literally, the two cards I was eyeing up are Baby Petch and Oranguru V. Let's talk about Baby Petch Runt. It has the Toxic Subjugation ability on an 80 HP little single prizer. It says, as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, put 5 more damage counters on your opponent's poisoned Pokemon during Pokemon checkup. And it has the Poison Chain attack. You're never using that because you don't.
You never use a Point Chain to this one. But
you can use the Brute Bonnet and the Ancient Booster Energy Capsule to poison your opponent's active Pokemon. They would take 10, but because you've got Baby Petch in the active, they're taking 6. Because you've got Radiant Hisuian Sneasler, they're taking 8 between turns.
Yes.
So it's good to have.
Yeah, you can take out, those weak single prize basic Pokemon, Charmanders, Dreepies, all of that, which, you're hitting like that 80. That's that perfect number right there for it. And then on top of that, your opponent, because it's poison, because it's happening in between turns, your opponent's not able to get Pheasantipity to draw 3 more cards. It's the Pheasantipity check that every other deck wishes it had.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then to kind of go with that, like we said, with the Oranguru V back order, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon tool cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And so tool search with this obviously is very important because you need the Ancient Booster Capsule to make your Brute Bonnet work. You want the Binding Mochi to give you that damage to punch. I mean, we're valuing tools so much in this deck that we've got 2 Forest Seal Stones in here to ensure that if one is prized, you hopefully don't have the other one prized. It's very unlikely, and you will be able to get that search off, for whatever you want, whatever you need at the time that you're going to use it. And yeah, God, it's a deck that kind of does everything.
It's cool for a lot of reasons. It's very much, like you said, it is a quintessential toolbox deck. It does a lot of things very, very well. It's not BDIF by any stretch of the imagination, but it can hang in this top level of play where it has the advantages of like single prize attackers. It has the advantages of being able to search out key cards that it needs. Has the advantage of being able to get set up consistently with that precious trolley in there.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting deck for a lot of reasons. And I think it absolutely has earned its stay in the meta at that 5th place spot in Rio. So cool.
Absolutely.
And also, I guess people were prepared with the Thorns, so being able to have that Cloth as an answer to Thorns is good. Another great reason to love that deck. To love that deck.
For sure. I will say, one thing that because I've seen this deck around. One thing that I've seen thrown around, and it's been in some online lists with this Cloth Terapagos deck before. The old Hisuian Zoroark V as a pivot, turn right? 1 going second attacker. Yeah, and as a pivot, right? It's got for those who don't know, and understandably so, Hisuian Zoroark
understandably so
V,
is right, yeah.
Because you weren't ever playing Hisuian Zoroark V for its you weren't ever playing it to use its attacks. You were playing it so you could use Hisuian Zoroark V Star if you were playing V Star.
That's true. That was such a cool deck, by the way.
Very fun. Still one of my favorites. Still one of my absolute favorites. Cool. Story for another time. But yes, Hisuian Zoroark V has this attack, Void Return. No energy cost for this attack. You may switch this Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon, and it does 30 damage.
Easy.
So when you think about like what this deck is doing, right? You can make 30 be much higher with this deck.
That's 110, right? With all the numbers we established earlier.
I believe it's more. I actually believe it's more. If you do this the right way, you're punching for 30. You've got the Mochi, which pumps that up to 70.
Oh, I forgot about the Mochi. Yep. You can use the Mochi.
On top of that, it's switching itself out, so you move that in place of the Pecharon.
You get a little baby
which
patch.
Means, yep. So now that 70 is 113.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
The Sneasler bumps that up to 150. Is that right? Did I say
130?
30. Or excuse me, 130. Yes. 130.
Whoa. Never before seen 113 in Pokemon.
We're hitting Yu-Gi-Oh number. Yu-Gi-Oh type math. No, yeah, you're hitting 130, and then with the Sneasler, that's 150.
That's 150. Yeah. Now you got me doing it. Dang it. 150.
I got you on it now. Yep.
That's good. 150 is huge.
I mean, that's KOing Baby Moods and stuff like that. Like that's KOing some of the bigger.
It's KOing Cloth.
Single prize. It's KOing Cloth. It's KOing bigger single prize basic Pokemon that you may not be able to get with just the Petch alone. Like I said, it's a very niche one. I don't think it's not in this list, and I think justifiably so. I think it's a very like niche tech, and you would have to cut something else out that's much better for consistency.
Certainly,
but I just wanted to mention that one purely because I really love that ideas of like those silly little techs.
Yeah. No, 100%. I agree with that entirely. I think Hisuian Zoroark V is very cool. Worthy to include if you want to play Cloth Terapagos. Just so many cool, stylish decks being played this past weekend in Birmingham and Rio.
Yeah.
Who's to say what is going to be popular at San Antonio this weekend? Obviously, last week we spoke with Jose Zelaya about his tourney coming up. He will be attending San Antonio right now. I'm sure he is probably just now about to wrap up what's been surely a heck of a day for him.
Yes, no doubt.
I wonder what he's playing. Probably something cool. But yeah, who's to say what's gonna be popular this weekend? So it's cool, but it's cool beyond compare to see so many, just even if they're not always like the standout best deck in format or just standout powerhouse decks. We're seeing cool and stylish decks like Palkia Noctowl. We're seeing our Chaladon. We're seeing Cloth Tarapkos, which actually also got a couple of placements in Birmingham as well. But we're seeing like the Iron Thorns decks. We're seeing, Golden Go. That's not exactly stylish, but but nonetheless, we're seeing more than just Regidrago, and it very much goes to suggest exactly what you said, that people are the American people are tired of Regidrago. That was so dumb.
Oh man!
Shout out Bernie Sanders. But no, that's how it feels. Is people are tired of playing Regidrago, and so they're like, let's just play other stuff, man. I'm tired of it.
I mean,
and it's cool to see it all. I'm even not mad at seeing Snorlax stalled in top 16 at Birmingham, just because it's beating out so many Regidragos.
It's a Drago check, really and truly.
Yeah.
So happy to see that there. I mean, and it's like you said, people are comfortable enough to like just maybe start trying some other stuff. I remember watching like at least day one last weekend, and the first round they showed on stream was a Palafin player, which it was not good. No. I'm just gonna be straight up. It was not good. That was a disaster class. On what not to play. I'm sorry. But at the very least, like people are starting to maybe try and mess around with that. And, shout out to honestly, like, bring a deck like that to regionals, knowing that it's definitely not like the best type of deck.
Shout out to rogue deck players, man. Y'all are what makes this game so cool.
Absolutely. Keep trying them out. Keep having fun.
Please keep trying them out.
Something will eventually happen, and that'll we'll crack the code on some of these cards because of that.
Right, exactly. We just need the right list. Like I mean, somebody made top what is it? Top, where was it? Oh my goodness. I just saw a Gouging Fire in Birmingham. There's a top 64 Gouging Fire EX. And I mean, we're seeing Palkia and Noctowl, which I've been swearing by for a long time, and now it's showing up and doing well. Like,
these
and just all these cool rogue decks, like even Miraidon's doing good. Like, if you get the lists, then stuff can work.
Yep.
I don't think anything is as set in stone as like, oh, one deck is head and shoulders above everything else all the time forever.
No.
It sometimes gets close, but we're not in a tier 0 format, and that's just evidence of a well-balanced game right now.
Yeah. We're in such a diverse format in the Pokemon trading card game right now that like people are just trying out a lot of stuff and having a lot of fun. Going down this list to like some of the farther out ones, I mean, someone hit top 100 with a Pikachu Regigigas deck. They ran Regis with Pikachu, and we saw that on stream back in, I believe it was in Toronto. I want to say.
I think so.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfectly satisfactory deck to bring to a regional and make day 2 with potentially, and have a lot of fun with too.
Again, another very stylish deck.
Yeah, very, very stylish. Absolutely. Like, no one's expecting a lot, and if you make day 2 with this deck, even if you're not like top cutting, if you're just hitting day 2,
sure.
People are still like, man, someone did that, Someone brought this and went that far with this.
Yeah. And that's another cool thing about it. But speaking of diverse formats, let's real quickly spend the last kind of third of this episode talking about City League results in Japan.
Yep.
Because that is what we're heading into. This is actually a much less diverse format, believe it or not. We've seen some wacky stuff coming out in Japan because currently for them, Journey Together, what is their set called? Battle Partners EX is legal in Japan right now, so we have seen a lot of new decks and old decks come out that are eagerly taking advantage of those cards and making a whole lot of noise in that scene in Japan.
Yeah. There's just there's
a lot.
there's so many fun looking decks. There's so many wacky looking decks. Like
the fact that Nagasaki on the 25th, actually today, literally today,
yep,
a
all of these
Swine EX deck just won a tournament is bonkers to me.
Just to preface this, all of these results are pretty much are going to be from the pretty much today. I believe there's a few on there that were the 24th, Friday, but pretty much everything else is going to be Saturday the 25th in Japan. And so like this weekend, this opening weekend of their rotation and their, you know, new format and all of that, I think is going to be really really interesting to look at. But yeah, like you said, this Mammoth Swine list, oh my god, this is
absolutely wild. It's got the Copium Blaziken in there.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got with its boiling fighting spirit ability that says once during the turn you may attach a basic energy card from your discard to one of your Pokemon. Any energy type, by the way. I thought it was just a magma based on a body. It's not.
Nope.
It's cooler than that. So, but it's still Copium, IMO. But it's cool to see that showing up in like Mamoswine, and Mamoswine just gets all your guys, and Pidgeot gets you whatever you want. And then there's a Dragapult in there for good measure.
Yep. For those who don't know, Mamoswine has the ability Mammoth Carry. So first of all, Mamoswine, 340 HP, a fighting type. Ability is Mammoth Carry. Yes. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And that's any Pokemon. So
anybody.
It's not quite Pidgeot EX where it's searching for any card, but it is searching for any Pokemon.
It's what Pidgeot is sometimes.
And the translation on this, I believe, is similar in the way that Pidgeot is, where you don't have to reveal what that is to your opponent.
I think you do have to reveal it if it's a Pokemon. I'm pretty sure,
is it?
Generally speaking, it will say reveal unless it is just universal search, because you have to prove it to your opponent that it is a Pokemon.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. But this also, it's might just be translation issue if that's the case, leaving that part out. But yes, that's still, absolutely bonkers ability to be able to just grab any card that you, any Pokemon that you want, any of them that you've got in your deck. You're just like, oh, well, I need this, so we're grabbing this one. You know,
I think it's
that's
cool
it.
This deck also plays Big Air Balloon from 151 that says the stage 2 of the Pokemon this is attached to has no retreat cost. And
yes.
Mamoswine EX's attack is 180 plus for 2 fighting. It's called Reverberating March, or whatever we get it translated to, where it does 40 more for each of your bench stage 2 Pokemon. Excuse me. So your optimal board state is probably 2 Mamoswine EX, a Blaziken, and a Pidgeot, and maybe a Dragapult. So that's 5 times 4. That's 200. That's 380. You're probably not ever hitting like 380 every turn, but that's usually 340.
It's going to be very easy for this deck to set up in a way where the first time you're attacking with this, you're already going to be punching for 220. The very first time you attack with this card, and it just going from there. Also, the fact that 180 stomps on a lot of important weaknesses. The Fez weakness, the Terapagos weakness, lightning types that are going to be, I think, probably more prevalent when we look at maybe some of those on
Turbo
these
Miraidon
lists.
is going to be pretty interesting.
Yep. So we finally have a pretty solid fighting type in the format for once. I feel like it's been a while since Pokemon's had a good fighting type Pokemon.
And another very cool note about it is that it is weak to grass, which is unusual for fighting types. I guess it's just because it's a ground type in the game, and so they were like, let's give it this, which makes it checkable by Ogerpon eventually, because obviously it takes a lot of energy requirement, but it also makes it so that Gardevoir doesn't just smoke it out of the water. Like there's no immediately being checked by a really, really common deck. Granted, we're seeing a lot of Ogerpon in the next format, in Japanese lists, but we're also seeing like Gardevoir. We're seeing other psychic types coming out. We're seeing even this Azumarill, sometimes a psychic type. Being weak to a psychic type with this much HP and this potent of an ability, and being so reliant on that Mamoswine would be detrimental to the deck as it functions. So very cool to see that that card is being designed in such a meticulous and interesting way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the best part about this deck is you have this kind of wealth of attackers to kind of back up the Mamoswine. You've got, the Blaziken, which it's not, attacking for a crazy amount of damage, but 200 is good cleanup depending on stuff. I mean, we've got the Dragapult EX in here, which if Dragapult sets up, damage counters in a certain way, Blaziken EX can start taking meaningful KOs off of whatever, the counters are set up on. You obviously have the Pidgeot EX in here because Pidgeot is just so good in a lot of stuff, and a deck that's already focused around getting whatever, Pokemon you want out of the deck. I think, synergizes really well with a Pokemon that's all about getting whatever card you want out of the deck. Yeah. So you're looking at, and I don't know, I don't know if the full translation of Mammoth Carry is going to specify as like you can only use one Mammoth Carry per turn.
True.
Or
if you can use
this ability once per turn. If you use this ability once per turn and not one Mammoth Carry per turn, you could, absolutely. Looking at, like, you could go double Mammoth Carry and a, Pidgeot quick search for 3 cards out of your deck. And then we've even got, like, the fun little extra inclusion, these one-ofs of the
the Kling
Stellar Crown Clink Clang, which emergency rotation lets you, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your hand and your opponent has any Stage 2 Pokemon in play, you may put this Pokemon onto your bench. So that's a free extra Stage 2 against other Stage 2 decks. And then the Luxray.
Luxray, where if you're behind on prizes, you can just put it right on the bench. Very, very cool. It's great for taking out other opposing Pidgeots and other support Pokemon like that. It's nice to see these little tech attackers get their place.
Unfortunately, they didn't include any lightning energy or
how do they
reversal
do that?
in this.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Why is Luxray in the deck?
I mean, the Luxray, I think, is in there just because it's like when you're behind on prizes, you can use Swelling Flash, play it down, and get that extra 40 off the Mamoswine.
Wait, that does boost Mamoswine. Okay, never mind. That's good. Clang Clang also benefits Mamoswine. That's crazy.
Exactly.
Even though they're cheated into play. Oh, this guy's... Whoever cooked this up has the biggest brain I've ever seen.
I do think it is maybe a slight missed opportunity to not include a copy of, just a one of psychic, reversal.
One of reversal or a lightning. I think that's optimal.
I think you could even get away with a lightning in this deck just because you could... I have, you already run the Crispin in this deck, right?
Yeah.
So you already run a way to put 2 basic energy onto something. You can Crispin and Blaziken EX onto, that Luxray, power it up for 180 punch, and then take out a Pidgeot or some sort of water attacker, pretty easily with that 180. And I think, because of that, I think a 1 of lightning energy and a 1 of reversal energy is maybe slightly missed in this deck. But that's why Japan is having some fun with it right now and kind of trying these out. And I'm sure we're going to see this deck refined quite a bit. I'm really looking forward to it. I really like this. Mamoswine's such a fun Pokemon too.
He's a cool guy.
So
Gen 4, a Gen 4 OG. Love that dude.
But let's look at something different.
Yeah, there's a couple of other ones I want to get to before we kind of run out of time, including there's not a lot else new at Nagasaki. There's a lot of Raging Bolt happening. The Azumarill Noctowl deck is cool, but I really am interested in this Ends Zoroark EX deck. It seems like very much just what some folks are saying is going to be good, and some folks who are incorrect are saying that it's going to be bad. You heard it here first. Again, I'm always right. You can't argue with me about it. It's gonna be good.
Man.
It's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
Like it runs.
Yeah.
And Zoroark EX is, of course, for those who have not been paying too much attention to it, is a spiritual successor to Zoroark GX from the XY or Black and White era, where it has the trade ability where you discard one, draw two. Refinement Curlia, if you're familiar, it's very much like that. And then it has for 2 dark, you can use the attack of any other benched ends Pokemon in play that you have on your bench, not your opponent's.
Yes.
You combine that with a ends Darmanitan that can do 90 to the active and 90 to the bench. Or the ends Reshiram, which can do 170 to the active or 20 for each damage counter on it. You combine that with like an item card that lets you accelerate energy from your discard pile. And it's a very potent deck just to be able to attack with every turn, have that draw engine baked in. It just seems like it is going to be a very it's not like sexy, but it definitely gets the job done, and it's an effective deck. And this deck in particular got 16th place and runs some really spicy cards, like a 1 of Poppy to move 2 energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon, just to really accelerate energy, with another cool tech card in this list, Roaring Moon EX. Very, very cool to see that just thrown in the deck. Be like, sometimes we just need a nuclear button, and that'll do it. That'll do the job very, very well.
I think that like decks that, I mean, any deck that runs dark type attackers that can effectively include a Roaring Moon, like either running dark type attackers or running way to accelerate energy specifically to dark type attackers, I think should consider that one of Roaring Moon, just because that's, you having a on-demand delete button for whatever you're punching into is super important. Sometimes you're not able to make that damage reach far enough. Roaring Moon says it doesn't care. It takes care of it anyway. Your opponent has Hero's Cape on Charizard, delete it. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. It doesn't matter. Yep. And so that's I think like that's such a fun tech to include in there. It's whether that's absolutely the optimal idea, I don't know. Right. But it's super, super fun. I think that the Petrant to kind of like push a Zoroark off your bench, combining that with Binding Mochi for 40 more damage means that Reshiram, the
170
the attack called?
I don't know.
The Flame, 170, easily becomes the 210, which is enough to KO like the big support basics that are in format right now. Like every single big support basic is getting KO'd by that. Pheasantipity and down, all of them. And so like that's important. So if you can make a game out of not even worrying about your opponent's like active, attackers like a Charizard, and focusing in on something like Pheasantipities and things like that, like you can make a game work out much better sometimes. Like I think that's super cool to like play in a not straightforward manner, and play in kind of this roundabout way of taking all of your prizes.
Yeah, just being able to move around your opponent's big threats in the active and take out their support Pokemon, it can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it's a very versatile way to like handle those threats, is to just be like, I'm not going to deal with the active, like especially against like a Zard or something. Like it's cool to be able to like, I'll deal with you later. Give me this guy.
Yeah.
There's some other cool decks. There is an Archaludon with Hops Dubwool and Hops Zacian, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
I think the Hop deck is going to be its own thing. What we're seeing a lot of, though, is what do we even call this? Just stall wall, like cornerstone. A lot of decks that run Milotic EX with the Sparkling Scales ability to prevent damage and effects of attacks from Terras. Farigiraf EX to prevent all damage done by basic EXs. Cornerstone to prevent everything done by Pokemon who have an ability.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, no Mimikyu, but
No Mimikyu in this.
whatever.
And I think that like I think it kind of comes down to like how you decide to play this deck out because there's like you can put the Mimikyu in. I've seen some lists. I've scrolled through and seen some lists that run like um a Noivern EX instead.
Very good.
So you can do Noivern EX. I think the attack is Covert Flight.
Yep.
Where you're dealing a little bit of damage and preventing basic Pokemon from attacking back. So you get that answer into maybe like non-EX basics, which might be more valuable to do that at times instead of, just putting the Furgraph up and blocking only basic EXs. And I kind of like this idea of like a toolbox walling deck that, says, okay, I'm going to have an answer based on my matchup. So I'll start like whatever basic I start, and then as soon as I can read what matchup I'm in, I'm going to pivot towards what beats that matchup.
That's right.
I love that idea.
Yeah, and that's most control playstyles. Is you flip over the cards, you see what your opponent's running, and you say, okay, here's my out to that. Yes. And you go get it. And it's cool to be in a place where you have consistency baked in so that you can go get what you need.
Yeah.
Another way less consistent deck that won Kanagawa is something that I'm very excited about. And that is Alakazam Zot. This deck should not work, but it seems like it does.
Absolutely.
The premise is that you keep an Alakazam that can use its dimensional hand attack to attack for 120 for 2 psychic from the bench. Can attack from the bench. So sick. But you keep a Mimikyu or a Klefki in the active to shut off your opponent's abilities. Things like that. But you run it in tandem with Lily's Clefairy EX, which makes all of your opponent's dragon types weak to psychic.
Yes.
So you're hitting for weakness. It's weird because like normally when you think, okay, bench damage and weakness doesn't matter. Because if your opponent attacks your Pokemon, you don't calculate weakness when you're attacking a Pokemon on the bench. When you're attacking from the bench, though, with Alakazam EX, you absolutely do count weakness. And so being able to just be like, oh, that thing's doing 240 into my active with just some goober on the bench that I can't even grab. Yeah. It's cool that this also plays the one prize Alakazam from Twilight Masquerade. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that, like one prize Alakazam. For those who don't know, and understandably so, Alakazam from Twilight Masquerade has this attack, Strange Hacking, for 1 psychic energy. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused, and you may move any number of damage counters from your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon in any way that you like. This is a fun ability because you can like, I mean, like, I just immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking like, I see like Lily's Clefairy here. Your opponent has a Dragapult and you punch for 240, and now any Dreepy or anything less than 240 really HP that your opponent has in play is automatically a target for Strange Hacking. Yes. And they don't even have to be active for Strange Hacking to be to target them. You can Strange Hacking, lock up something that like that Dragapult, confuse it, and then just move some of those damage counters around in a way that takes out maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 like single price Pokemon. You can take out like a Pheasantipity with that, and put some other damage counters on something. It's kind of like your Radiant Alakazam, but on steroids.
On steroids is right. Super like, cool attack. Very cool combination deck. You use Zatu's Clairvoyant Sensibility to accelerate your energy and draw cards. It's
you've
cool.
got your baked-in draw engine and energy acceleration there. You've got Mimikyu, Klefki, those kinds of Pokemon to just start walling stuff out. And they even included like Rabska line in there just to make sure that they have some bench protection as well.
I think they should have rocked with the Gastrodon too.
Yeah, honestly, the Gastrodon would have been good. I can understand the Reller and Rabska protection up for the bench. I'm almost wanting to see Monkey Dory in this list instead. To invite the damage in instead, and then use that as a way to kind of go in tandem, especially with like strange hacking. Like I feel like maybe you could, do something with that. Like I
saw Popsicle Knight make I believe it was a Frostlass Monkey Dory, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Palisand EX instead.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, it was Palisand EX and this Twilight Masquerade Alakazam, where he was just board wiping folks.
Yeah.
And strange hacking can be a very potent attack, especially if you're able to get it off with a bunch of damage on the board. Mm-hmm. And it's cool to be able to have that ability to attack and to move that damage from the bench. And that's what makes it so potent, is that you're attacking from the bench every turn. You're doing a lot of damage with Lily's Clefairy, because a lot of the potent decks right now that we're seeing a lot of Raging Bolt, we're seeing a lot of Dragapult, we're seeing a lot of Dragon types that are really, really good. Being able to attack those guys for weakness from the bench and lock up their abilities is going to stay good.
Yeah, and I like that this Clefairy is kind of coming with that ability post-rotation, because very obviously this would just be almost busted if it existed in the same format as Regidrago V and Regidrago V-Star.
Yes.
I mean, that would be instant check against that deck. The deck would go from where it is right now as like super high tier deck to just non-existent again if Lily's Clefairy existed right now. Just because of what it makes available. But I like that it because of that, you're still having to reach a little bit to get those KOs on the Dragapult. You still have to have like meaningful damage to make the Dragapult KOs work out.
Yeah.
Let me see. There's a couple other lists out here that are fun.
A little close on time though. The ones that I really want to mention just briefly, we don't have to really go into detail about them. Double Bolt with the Iono's Belly Bolt EX and the Raging Bolt EX is going to be very potent. There are certain people in the local scene who think it's going to be tier 0. I think I disagree with those people. But it is going... Iono's Belly Bolt EX has a Rain Dance type ability where you can attach as many lightning as you want to Iono's Pokemon as many times as you want during your turn. There's also a Kilowattrel, which has Revavroom's ability where you discard and fill to 6. And there's a Stadium that lets you recur lightning energies from the discard. So it seems like a great way to be able to power that up, but I still think it's overhyped, just IMO. There's also a little bit of
it's much more setup heavy than I think the standard kind of Raging Bolt list. And so I think you're sacrificing like Raging Bolt's draw power and consistency for setup. And I don't know if that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because you're not getting that turn 1 attack off as often.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're also seeing the return of some future hands lists, which is really, really interesting.
I think I like seeing future hands and future box having a chance to kind of come back, and I think that comes from it's got breathing room now. The format slows down a little bit. It's not enemy number 1, and so now hands has time to kind of come back and remind everyone that you need to be careful what low HP single price Pokemon you're putting out there, because it turns all of them into low HP 2-price Pokemon.
That's right. Yeah, it's a very, very potent deck, and it'll be cool to see that gain some more traction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there other decks you want to go over before we move on over to the bonus content?
I think someone did make a hops deck and made it work out. Actually,
Oh, that's cool. Let me see.
I've seen a couple of them. There is one
maybe
in one of the Tokyo City Leagues.
We're looking at Limitless, by the way. Which one is it, did you say?
It is, I believe it is the Book Off Super Bizarre Tokyo League. No, it is not.
Okay. Somebody did make Hydreigon Pidgeot work there, though, which is cool.
It is the first Tokyo League.
Yes.
Listed on Limitless.
It got third place. No, Cram! This deck sucks. No, that's Archaludon, my bad.
That's the Archaludon one. It's farther down at 11.
Yes, 11 right here.
There still is no Cram, which
there's
I'm
a Cram.
not... Oh, wait, there is. Yes.
There's one.
I missed that. Yes. I think this deck has a lot of potential too. Hops Zacian, obviously, doing 240, for instant slash 30 damage and then 30 to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon.
That is the Screw Badoo card.
Yes, and you can make that kind of count for a lot more with certain other things that the Hops list includes. You've got the Hops Choice Band, which gives Hops Pokemon one less colorless cost for the attacks, and they do 30 more damage to the active Pokemon. So suddenly, Quick Slash is going from one colorless cost to a free attack that does 60 to the active and 30 to the bench. And then combo that with Post-Week Stadium. Attacks used by Hops Pokemon do 30 more damage to the active Pokemon.
30 more damage. So, 30 more damage.
I mean, at 230 HP, attacking for free, if you can get that going, that's really good. And then, the Snorlax, the same thing. Attacks used by your Hops Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active. 120 for free is very good. It's obviously, that's not, big damage, but that's good damage for free. Most that's in a format where most free attacks that do any damage are 30.
Right,
30 at most. I think the only one that I can think of that's going to be legal at that point is I think the Elekid or the Magby maybe. I think both of them have a free attack that are 30 or something like that.
Elekid's is 30 anywhere.
Yeah, 30 anywhere for Elekid. So you have some options, and then it just kind of, aside from that, you have the Hops Cramorant. If your opponent, it's got Whimsical Spit does 120 for one colorless energy, and if your opponent doesn't have exactly 3 or 4 prizes remaining, it does nothing. So mid-game, with all of that damage powering it up, you're suddenly doing 210 for free.
And worth noting, you can manipulate those prizes with the Dusclops that you play.
Yep.
And you don't even play the Dusknoir because you have so many damage mobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. This list includes the Dusclops. It doesn't bother with trying to do Dusknoirs and rare candies because it doesn't need that. 50 more damage is enough to make your 120s, your 210s, stuff like that do a lot more and matter a lot more.
260 is big.
Mm-hmm. And then once you have the Hops Zacian EX powered up for its big attack, 240 Brave Slash, for 3 metal and a colorless, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Crazy?
Actually, this list doesn't
even run the metal energy. Yeah.
So this list is going
purely
off
just that
of
first attack. Crazy.
Yep.
Super interesting. I think Hop is going to be a cool archetype next format for sure.
I'm trying to see. They've got Dark Energy in here.
For Monkey Dory.
Yes, of course. I gotcha. Yeah. And that's just another damage manipulation tactic, especially against the Dragapults that are so popular right now. You're able to control.
Japan loves Dragapult. They love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing there are some EV decks that are starting to get a little bit of love. I think they're still bad.
Yes.
But they exist now.
They do.
They're fine.
I genuinely hope that like someone is able to kind of crack the code with that, because I think that it was a bit of a letdown to see Prismatic come out and just not matter
and just fall
competitively.
flat. Yeah.
Yeah. So getting to see like people maybe trying to figure out, okay, how can I make Flareon work, with that Carnelian attack, 280 damage. I know a lot of people are really going off for this Leafeon Verdant Storm, 60 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon, to kind of try to go after like these spread decks, especially the Iono. That's actually very strong in these matchups against maybe the Iono's Pokemon, where they're going to have to commit energy even before attacking and maybe sustain some of the energy between turns. So I know
because you never want to overkill,
Exactly. Yeah, but you always want to have it all available.
And when you discard too much, then you're in an even worse position.
For sure.
Very, very cool counterplay to that play style. Which is another thing that makes... What was that one deck we were talking about? I think it was the Alakazam that has an attack that does a lot of damage for each energy attached somewhere. Yeah, Psychic.
I believe so,
one prize Alakazam for...
Yes.
It's 50 for each energy attached to your opponent's active. So,
yeah.
Very, very cool stuff.
Like, it's... I think we're in an interesting spot to kind of see what everyone starts really trying to do. There's so much.
These are small tournaments, and this is brand new deck lists, and literally from today being brand new. It just went legal today. So it's, take it all with a grain of salt. There is still stuff to figure out, but I like where we're headed, and I like where we're at. Very, very exciting stuff.
City leagues are kind of like challenge level, which isn't to say that you shouldn't, discount them, but you definitely shouldn't hold them as gospel.
We're gonna
yeah, absolutely. But I think we're gonna see a lot of fun stuff come from this.
Absolutely.
So
I'm pretty happy about it.
Keep going at it, Japan, please. I am super excited to see what you keep cooking. I will probably be back on this website tomorrow to check more of these lists.
There's
when the Sunday lists come up.
Deck? What?
Okay, which one?
That is the City League Tokyo on 124. Oh, this is not the new set. My bad.
Okay.
Dang. I was really excited for a second. That's cool.
Unfortunate.
But yeah. Cool, man. Anything else that you wanted to look at, or are we gonna move it on over to the bonus content?
I think we're about ready to move on to the bonus content. I think we've pretty much covered all of our topics, everything that we were, wanting to bring to everyone for free. So now, once again, hit that like and that subscribe, and then come over to the Patreon, pay $5, and listen to us yap a little bit more.
It'll be awesome. You can't afford Prismatic Evolutions packs with $5. Send them our way. Send them our way. It'll be a better use of your money. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
Also, coming up soon is going to be, we do have planned for the immediate future is the Journey Together set list, and just kind of going over the full list. I know we kind of did it out of order, but I wanted to make sure we did our due diligence and made a full episode out of the set review, just so that we are not rushed for time. Because I mean, just with these two topics, we exceeded our time limit, honestly. So I wanted to make sure we give ourselves plenty of time to go over all of that good stuff and what is coming in the Journey Together format. But that will be coming, I believe, next episode. So for now, that's kind of all we've got for you here on YouTube and Spotify. So join us over at patreon.com/terminalcreative, and we're going to go over our local situation from this weekend. Lots of cool stuff, fun stories, and good times to be had all around. Thank you again for coming out and watching or listening. Give us a review on Spotify. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Give us a comment. Tell us what you're most excited for the upcoming format and the future of the Pokemon trading card game. I want to hear from you guys. And I also want you to come to Patreon so that this bonus content does not go to waste. It'll be great. Thank you all for coming and watching. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.